Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. I would like to note that I made Patty the host. If she would like me to keep admitting people, then she could consider co-hosts.
Yep, I gotcha.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Oh, my pleasure.
We appreciate your attention to detail. There you go. And co-host. Yeah. And great.
I apologize for the delay here. I have had like terrible technical difficulties. I apologize. I never anticipated. So
I have every sympathy for technical difficulties.
Yes. Extremely stressful. Okay. Do we have a quorum here? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like we're good to start. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the October 20th, 2020 meeting of the Community Relations Committee. We would like to thank Easthampton Media for recording tonight's meeting. All past meetings of the Community Relations Committee can be found on their website for viewing at any time in the future. For the benefit of those of you who are joining us from the community, I'd like to start this meeting by sharing our committee's mission statement. Our mission is to promote positive relations throughout Easthampton's diverse population. We will work to build a sense of inclusion, community, and pride, where community members feel welcome, accepted, and valued. We'll begin our meeting with a roll call. Rebecca Passa.
Here.
Patty Dougherty.
Here.
Emily Britton.
Here.
Abby Goldberg.
Here.
Margaret Kirstein. Not yet. Okay. Mary Lou Splain.
Here.
Alyssa O'Leary.
Here.
Jan Norman.
He's connecting.
He's connecting. Okay, we'll come back to him. Myra Oyedemi.
Here.
Gabby Stevenson.
Here.
Jan Norman.
Here.
And Deborah Lucnia, present. Okay. Was anyone, I noticed that Margaret sent us an email asking for a link to the meeting. Was anyone responding to that? Did anyone have a chance to respond to that?
I sent it. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure she wasn't suffering out there due to technical difficulties. Okay. All righty. Very good. We'll start off with the approval of our minutes from our meeting on October 6th, 2020. Does anyone have any comments, suggestions, clarifications, anything on those minutes? Oh, Margaret's with us. Margaret, you're muted. It looks like you have something to say about this, so I'm going to wait till you unmute.
I unmuted. I don't know what you said I don't know what you just said.
Okay, we were just at the point in the meeting where we're going to approve the minutes from our last meeting, October 6th. And so I was wondering if there are any comments before we vote on that. No. Okay, so I just had one suggestion I was going to make with regard to the very end of the minutes under new business when we talked about future agenda topics. The last sentence under A was survey of interested people based on Myra's recommendations. And I was just wondering, I was kind of looking for a little bit clearer statement on that. And Myra, I was just wondering if you could comment on that. I just wanted to make sure that we represented your suggestion clearly there.
Sure, I can clarify my comment. What I was suggesting is that we have a survey as we're rolling out the different websites and platforms for engagement. And my suggestion is that we look back to the Spirit report and see what community residents are finding as their priority in terms of event planning and programming.
Okay, great. Okay. So I was just wondering, Rebecca, would you be willing to just make a little bit more detailed statement? Just, I mean, it doesn't have to be that much more detail, but just clarifying that a little bit as a request before we approve. Would that be okay?
Sure. So I think we'd want to know what that sentence will say. So shall it say survey of interested people? Should we say based on the Spirit report or based on information? I mean, it's that kind of
Would it be survey of
checking.
possible topics for future educational programming?
Okay.
Would that be accurate, Myra?
That's in part, yes. I'm just looking to see what my suggestion, as it was in the meeting, was to have a survey, and I'm not exactly sure how to read now, but have a survey where we seek suggestions of topics for future event programming, probably as aligned with items identified in the Spirit report.
Okay, great.
So perhaps survey of community members regarding possible topics, should I say related to the prior Spirit report for future programming. How does that sound?
That sounds accurate.
Great.
Okay, so I'm making this change. 7A, the last sentence, survey of community members regarding possible topics related to the prior Spirit report for future programming.
Great. So would everyone be willing to approve the minutes with that change, that requested change?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
I'll second it.
Second, motion's been made, it's been seconded. All those in favor? I'll do the roll call again. Rebecca?
Yes.
Patty?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Abby?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Mary Lou?
Yes.
Alyssa?
Yes.
Jan?
Yes.
Myra?
Yes.
Gabby?
Yes.
And myself as well. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, moving on to the next item on our agenda, correspondence and announcements.
Deb, excuse me, did Pasqualina, is she here? I see her on, but she didn't say yes or no.
She's not.
She's in the mayor's group, but I don't think she's on this committee.
Thank you. You're right. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, she's not on this committee.
Sorry.
Okay, correspondence and announcements. First of all, does anyone have any correspondence that they would like to share with the committee? Anything they've received? Okay. So in terms of announcements, first of all, I am required to make the following announcements. So we'll do that first. After our last meeting, a member of our committee requested that Easthampton Media remove personal information that was shared by that individual during our introductions from the recording of the meeting for privacy reasons. Because the information was not part of a deliberation on an agenda topic and was not related to any item on the agenda, the edit will be allowable. I've been told that this kind of edit is not something that should be done with any regularity and without oversight from the Open Meeting Law Office and the Attorney General's Department. Open meeting laws are very clear about having open dialogue and debate in full view of the public. So I just wanted to explain that that edit would be made, but I needed to make that statement. So two other announcements that I wanted to mention at this time. We've had a request from one of our committee members to develop a code of conduct for CRC members, similar to what the City Council has. And I just wanted to announce that we will definitely plan to add that to an upcoming agenda. And similarly, we had the request to discuss possibly conducting a survey, and we will add that to a future agenda as well. I just wanted to acknowledge those two things, that we will address those in an upcoming meeting. Okay, next on the agenda is public speak. At this time, any member of the public is welcome to speak to the committee. If you'd like to speak, use the raise your hand feature by selecting the participants option at the bottom of your screen. then click raise hand at the bottom of the participants window. If you're dialing in by phone only, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Please remain on mute until you're called, at which point you can unmute yourself. When it is your turn to speak, we will ask that you state your name and the address of your residence before addressing the committee. I would also like to remind everyone that the members of the committee cannot respond to comments made during public speak, but we ask that you remain respectful and we ask that you direct your comments only to the committee members. There will be a 3-minute time limit for those who wish to speak. Is anyone interested in addressing the committee tonight? Okay.
I see 2 raised hands, so I think Pasqualina raised her hand first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think Hi, Pasqualina, go right ahead.
Thank you. My name is Pasqualina Azzarello, and I live in Precinct 5 in Easthampton, Massachusetts. And I have not been able to attend CRC meetings in the last few months. I've had other meetings scheduled at the same time, but I've been following along from the sidelines about, how things have been developing along. And I was glad that I could attend this evening. I noticed that on the agenda for tonight, there's something regarding the role of the CRC. And I had 2 thoughts that I just wanted to share with the group. One is, I think that, the more I participate on the mayor's working group, which has been really great with a number of members here. And something that I've been reflecting on is just the value that I think the CRC could bring to Easthampton and to, all of the communities throughout Easthampton, is like the role of a listening body. I'm happy to hear that a survey is being discussed tonight. I didn't know that, but I know there's talk about a forum, but I think that which could be great, but we need a body within our municipality whose responsibility it is to listen to the community. I think that across all aspects of city government, that is a role of any, I'm a civil servant and I take that very seriously in my own job and in my role. But I think the idea that the CRC could really invest in the next year or 2 years to really listen and to create opportunities for some deep listening, it would be very meaningful. So I wanted to share that. And the second thing I wanted to share very quickly is, this work we're doing in the mayor's working group. It's been really, I think, very valuable so far. I feel very encouraged by what I'm learning and by what I sense is happening. And we're going to need someone to continue that work beyond our program, beyond our scheduled, so come winter, come spring, moving forward, and this is premature, this is early, I'm really just planting a seed, but, whatever comes of that process is not going to end with our Friday meetings, through that group. And so I just want to plant the seed because I think it's very relevant to what the CRC is here for, what it comes from, and what the value it could continue to bring to Easthampton moving forward. So I just wanted to share that tonight, and I'm glad to be here. I will have to hop off early because I have a meeting at 7, but it's nice to see you all again.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Carolyn.
Yes. Hi, I was at the last meeting, so I got to observe that. And I wanted to appreciate the committee for the, when you were discussing the forum and the question of facilitation came up and what was appropriate. And although there's kind of had this pressure of this idea of what you're doing, you actually decided to pull back and consider, to have whatever comes forth be the right match. I'm pretty sure it's on the agenda for tonight. And so these are some questions I'm raising that maybe can get addressed because I can't ask questions later. I was realizing afterwards, I wasn't really caring, I don't know if you all are, but what is the purpose of the forum? What are the goals, the things you want to achieve? And then of course, whoever you may want to work with, how do they meet those goals? And if it's going to be online, you know, the facilitator or someone to work with you, like what is their experience doing online? And online has this whole other aspect of the technical part and all these things that you need to pay attention to. And I just listened to Pascalina. We hadn't heard her say this, and I'm listening to you talk about the survey. I mean, I really agree that, you know, listening and, you know, what do people need? And we're in this pandemic time, which kind of limits our formats. So, you know, I'm not sure, like an online forum, how would that really work? So like, I have questions about that. And I appreciate how before you kind of reoriented and kind of brought in more info, and hope you might keep doing that. I feel like I had one other, I'm not sure of the way to communicate with the committee. I bet you'll review that in your communications thing. I don't think you have an email yet or whatever, or maybe I could have written individually to someone and it would have come in, but you can maybe clarify that as part of your agenda. That's it, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? Oh, looks like we're all set. Okay, then we'll consider public speak closed. Thank you very much. Okay, next on our agenda is the citizens' complaints alleging code of ethics violations by 2 police officers on August 1st, 2020. For a little background information here, at our last meeting during public speak, Liz Perry requested that we investigate an incident that happened in our city on August 1st, 2020. And while we're not an investigative committee, Patty and I felt the need to clarify our role in matters such as these with the mayor and report back to you on that. So our conversation with the mayor resulted in a summary of our responsibilities when provided with a complaint or incident report. And it also alerted us to the internal affairs investigative report from the police department, which we forwarded a copy to all of you. So I hope you've all had a chance to look at that. But at any rate, at this time, I thought we could discuss that, and then we'll also discuss our committee's responsibilities with these matters going forward. So to start off, Mayor LaChapelle, would you like to make any comment to start? You're muted.
Yes, thank you very much. So one, thank you all for the work of this committee and also just approaching the issues before our community and really our society around how we relate to each other, but also, you know, if nothing else, a racial and bias reckoning that's going across our country, but most certainly here in Easthampton, as well as I look at the people as I know you on the screen before me, and I marvel a little bit that we're all here, and I'm very I'm grateful for that, because the work and conversation is not easy. So I thank you in each of your own persons to share your experience to the conversation. I was supposed to deliver to this committee tonight my letter that summarizes or goes over the independent legal review that I had done by an attorney, John Clifford, who has represented us management and has some experience in these kinds of investigations. He has completed that. And I drew up my statement that goes with his, and I sent it back to him, and I honestly just got lost in time, and he hasn't been able to get it back to me. So my deep apologies, and upon, you know, invitation of the committee, of course, I'm welcome, welcome coming back, regardless if I'm invited back or not. I will get you that letter before you meet next time. And I did promise your co-chairs I would get it, and I did. So apologies there. I kind of fringes on a little bit of public speak, but as far as a forum or what this committee decides to do, I would have to point as far as online engagement and conferences, the AKIND conference forum was done, I just filled out my survey, really well. And the way it's really one of the best online webinars, seminars, or whatnot I've attended, with the music and the way that they broke it up. It was engaging, it was thoughtful. So kudos to AKIND. I look forward to to Carolyn's comment, there's a way to do it really well. And that's a great example. And to that, I'm, I cede back to the co-chairs to answer any questions as you guys direct me to do so.
Patty, did you want to say something? Okay. Any comments, questions, discussion? Margaret?
I'm a little confused, Mayor. One of the things that we were sent was CRC responsibilities to make sure that our city government follows the administrative policies that are in place, hold them accountable to those policies. So I guess in the situation before us right now, and it shouldn't be, I think it shouldn't be specific to which department in the city or what the issue that comes before us is particularly. Mm-hmm. But for example, in the issue with the police department now, the CRC, we haven't really discussed it yet, but the CRC has reviewed what the complaints were, what the police investigation relayed. They have followed their appropriate procedures as far as I know. Mm-hmm. And where is the CRC's authority this next minute? Or for me as a committee member, I don't see us as having any future or further authority.
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that's a great question, Margaret. And that's like kind of at the crux of what we're trying to discuss and parse out tonight. And so Nicole is here. So, so we can, look at the language and make sure that what our purpose going forward really is. And we do, I'm so glad you said it, because we do need to be careful about, this idea that we are holding anyone else accountable. That's not within our power to do that. So I'm really anxious to sort of hammer out a little bit better language than what's been presented. So now I will give that back to Nicole and talk about where do we go next?
Yeah, so I would see I see this IA, I think it was Ms. Perry who brought the concern to the committee. I think that this is a good case study for the CRC. That's how I look at it. And then, it was brought forward and the chairs brought it forward to me as the city office. They wanted to reach out about it. I look at the CRC's role in this is one, they publicly requested the IA and distributed it to what I look at the clearinghouse of such information for the city. They also provided me a very public way to circle back and present my the independent legal review I was seeking, regardless of the CRC. I was already doing that. And the reason why I was doing that, but it's also parallel to, I find that the power of the CRC is to make sure that the process of an IA and internal affairs and the police policy was followed. And that, I look at that as separate. That is the policy. Is it being followed? If we don't know a policy is being followed, this is how I say this all the time to my department heads, then when we look to change it, or we look to just revisit it, we have to know how it works and that we actually used it the way we're supposed to before we change it. And I think, you know, something I spoke with Patty and to Deb. So say if we found that, you guys found that, wait a minute, like this isn't the internal investigation that's in the policy, then it would be the committee's right, or a member of the public's right, to say to the mayor's office, right? And say, well, okay, this is what it says. This is what happened. That doesn't match. We need to look into that. We want, you know, the CRC wants folks to look into this formally and whatever needed departments. And I would facilitate that at the direction of the CRC. There might be other policies or practices of the DPW or Park and Rec that just don't make sense, and don't seem to follow the policies they have out publicly. And the CRC might just go right directly to John Mason or a member of the Park Commission and say, let's talk through this. Like, we're hearing this is happening for members of the community, but this is the policy. They seem at odds. I think it will be very interesting, and I look forward to the mayor's pledge working group, because they're looking at a lot of policies and really sifting through data to get to what, you know, I think is the crux of the matter, is that policies need always to be revised and updated, modernized. They need to evolve. But if the culture around those policies doesn't evolve with the new words, then, you know, really, where are you? Right? I mean, you know, so the CRC with the new if there are any new policies, well, that's what they're checking against.
Nicole, can I, I'm a active person, so I understand things better if I can like understand what the steps would be.
Yeah.
So for example, somebody brings some incident to the CRC.
Yeah.
What I think I would do as the chair, as one of the chairs, is let's use the Park and Rec, for example, is I would reach out to Park and Rec and copy the mayor's office on it. I think I would always want you in the loop on that. And I think I want to just clarify, like, I am not, or Deb, going to be parsing through policy.
Right.
We are just asking the questions, and then we are asking of the head of that department to potentially, I don't want to say defend, but I suppose, like, if something happened, then say, where is the policy that says you should have done this, or where is the policy that says you you weren't responsible to do anything about it.
Yes.
Myra, I was going to say, Myra's had her hand up for a bit. So maybe, Myra, could you?
Yeah, I just have probably more questions than answers. And obviously this is my second meeting. So there's more. I had a lot of procedural questions as to what has been, you know, what is our policy? What are our procedures for receiving complaints? I'm assuming that this isn't the first feedback that the committee has gotten. So how has it been handled in the past? Because what I kind of was alluding to in the last meeting about the community feedback form is that there wasn't a way to share it. So I wanted to know the past ways that things have been resolved or communicated, or conversations of which we had with community members, because I'm assuming this isn't the first incident. I believe, let me see, Miss Britton brought up that she received a previous report, I believe it was from the police department, about some incidents which would refer to the group, but it stayed in a drive. But we didn't know the procedure. So do we in fact have some procedures that are already in place? How can they be shared with new members? And I just wanted to mention, because I'm looking at this binder, compliments of the of the city clerk, I believe. But I'm assuming there's much more updated information because this is from when you first started in 2019, March 30th, 2019. So I'm assuming that there's more ways that this body has been receiving information, and if so, what is it? And then, because I'm kind of a little bit perplexed, as we have some duties and we have some responsibilities, but I'm not sure, and I'm just asking for, I guess, clarification, because I kind of like to know what was done as precedent. When we talk about our roles and our duties, are we talking about the ones that were from the CRC, like Community Relations Commission training? Are we talking about the ones that are from, I don't know, it's page Easthampton Community Commission, page 8 out of 10, that say our duties and responsibilities? Are we talking about the ordinance? Are we talking about the spirit report, page 18? I'm just a little bit confused as you know, because in this one it says that, hold on a minute, we will study the nature and causes of barriers in the city's ordinances, community policies, and make recommendations. So if we don't know the policies and we're not aware of how there can be barriers, then how do we study them?
So maybe I can answer a few of those questions. So just to back up for a minute, for the most part, it is true that this is our first incident report. And we are actually just getting the incident report published. We're actually just getting it on the website. We've just got our new and updated information on our committee submitted for the website. So it's not even actually, I mean, it's in process, it's all in process, but there isn't actually the document there yet, I don't believe. It could be there today, but it maybe not. And the link to it, and Mayor LaChapelle had indicated that we could also put our incident report, a link to it on the cover page of the website, the city's website. So all of that is in the works, but hasn't been complete yet. And actually, this is our first, and Patty and I felt like it was important for us to communicate with Mayor LaChapelle on this, because this is pretty much our first incident report, even without the official report, and to try to begin to flesh some of that out. Now, I agree with you. There are so many different sources of information about what this committee is supposed to be, all that you listed. And basically our committee in the past year took all that information and condensed it in a sense to define for ourselves what our mission statement is, what our goals are, and try to summarize what we gleaned from all of that and what we felt should be our focus and our mission. And we've kind of been operating with that set of eyes, with that as our guiding light going forward. So what became this to I think our way of thinking was like another new level of trying to understand and clarify exactly what our role should be in this process. So like our mission statement talks about connecting citizens to our government. Like this is obviously part of that. And so I think as we go along, we're looking to define things and clarify things and be much more specific as we evolve. So that's my 2 cents for clarification on any of that. And I welcome anyone else to comment. Emily?
Unmute.
Okay. I do want to respond to Myra. She's absolutely right. I did mention that we had received a report and we didn't have a process yet. We didn't know what to do with the information yet. It was all historical data from, I believe, 2019. I requested it from our liaison with the police department, and he sent it to us willingly, and it listed some of the hate crimes against the LGBTQ community and the Jewish community. Yeah, and I did forward it to the committee probably twice now, but I'm wondering if I can get permission to send it to Myra and Gabby, since we don't have a storage place for these things yet.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gabby.
I just want to clarify. So as part of what we still need to establish is a process for how to address. Okay. And is there any, is there an ability, since we have Nicole here, for us to like maybe have a shared Google Drive so we don't have to rely on just emails for like, for example, so Emily can drop her email in the shared drive, or is everything, or should everything just be done via email?
I would tend to think it should be done through email. I mean, just to be very careful that we're not violating the open meeting law at any point. That's a gut reaction on my part, but.
Nicole, can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, so I mean, the use of a shared drive, Google or otherwise, can be done with open meeting law. What I strongly suggest that if a document is going into the shared drive, it's considered obviously a public document, but there's a vote by the committee, that everyone on the committee in the minutes realizes that, you know, this document is going into the shared drive. And so people know where it is. And other committees have done that as well. Where, you know, if there's a report or something somebody wants to share, that, you know, it's given to the chairs and the chair says, we are going to admit this to our shared drive.
There's no communication happening with it. It's just a storage facility. Okay.
Yeah. You could also, now that it's popping into my head, on the page, the community relations page, we could put a folder up there that could be accessed by everybody, and you guys could put the documents, you know, if you look at the planning page, you know, it'll say, you know, past applications, current grants. I mean, you could organize a system of folders on the city webpage under a community relations committee. That's really easy to do. Lindsay and Zoe do it for a lot of the committees and planning. So we could do that, and we're hopefully transitioning to a new website in the next couple of months. So that capacity will be even easier. So, but right now, maybe that's the easiest way to do it is some folders, so people don't have to worry about if they know Google or whatnot, and the folder can be online.
So, okay, go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I would find that immensely helpful, because if things are stored in our email addresses, then perhaps your historic activities and your materials, which would be artifacts of work, you know, would go along with whomsoever email it was. But if it's in a drive that belong or a shared file, then people can see it as, you know, and it will be the historic work of the group and precedents and procedures that have been developed. And it will also add to transparency of how the procedures that we do develop and what they are.
I'll just quickly add, what we're talking about right now with the documents or in this committee is something that we are talking about across a lot of committees, about how to push the documentation not only out into the public, but also to a place where it's archived. And as committees roll over or elected officials roll over or transition in or out, that the documentation is historically captured, and it's very easy to find and to follow. So this is something that we've struggled with the past, and one of the reasons why we're kicking it up to a new website. But what we're talking about now can be done tomorrow morning on our existing website with just a very simple folder, and we'll fill it with PDFs, and that's a right now done thing.
So Nicole, how exactly does that happen? Like, do we
Just,
send stuff to
yeah.
Send the request to Lindsay?
Yeah, just email it to Lindsay. If you have a folder name that you want to put it in, then give her the folder name. As you look on the website, on the page, if the committee says, oh, we want to label it this or that, or then, I mean, it is a 5-minute thing that they can do from behind the website.
Great. That's great. Thank you.
I have a question. So for example, we would have a folder that might say something like incident reports or documents related to incident reports.
Yeah.
Okay. And none of that is confidential at all?
No.
Okay.
I you know, honestly, I was stunned that the CRC, that Deb and Patty were the first ones to ask for the IA report as far as requesting public documents. Yeah, very little is not public.
Okay.
Which is one of the things that we can, as a committee, help people to understand in the community.
Yeah.
You know, that they're community documents and anyone can request to see a copy of it. So it's kind of part of our calling. Okay. Anything else?
So do we want to talk about the language in those 3 points?
Yeah, so how about if I read, since we don't have her here right here in front of us, how about if I read these points and then we can just have a discussion about that while Mayor LaChapelle is with us? Okay, so in our conversation when we were seeking clarification with the mayor about our responsibilities when we're provided with a complaint or incident report, the discussion was summarized as follows. Number 1, to make sure our city government follows the administrative policies that are in place and that we hold them accountable to those policies. Number 2, that we ensure that all municipal departments are following their existing policies in the most transparent way. And 3, that we follow up on policies that may not be fair or equitable. And then 4, that we share and promote what's going on as appropriate. So at this time, if we could hear any thoughts, comments, suggestions about this information.
Can you repeat the second one, Deb?
Sure. Ensure that all municipal departments are following their existing policies in the most transparent way.
So I feel like that somehow needs to be more specific, because ensure that could imply so many different things.
Okay.
Can I make a quick suggestion?
Gabby? Yes, Gabby.
Can we just maybe go one by one instead of reading them all at once?
Start at the beginning. Okay.
If we can just go like one by one and then see if anyone has comments about each one separately.
Okay.
Do you want to organize it that way?
Emily,
we can start with number 2 if you want, since Emily already had a comment. Number 1.
Okay. All right, we'll start with number 2. Ensure that all municipal departments are following their existing policies in the most transparent way. So Emily's suggesting that we, basically it's the word ensure that is concerning, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so any suggestions?
I mean, something like review the policies by which those departments acted and note any discrepancies, something like that, and discuss next steps if discrepancies are found. Something like that.
Okay, so that sounds more like it's about number 1 than number 2.
Okay, maybe.
Number 2 seems to be all about, are they executing things in the most transparent way?
Problem is it's a double-barreled issue. So you've got two issues there. You've got, are they following procedures and are they making them transparent? So they need to be dealt with separately and they need to be an A and a B. And then we need, as you were saying, Emily, we need to actually know how to operationalize that. So how do we know if they are following procedures, and then how do we know if they're doing that in the most transparent way? What are the action steps that we would need to take to actually know that?
Myra?
And then hopefully I'm not exactly sure if I heard all the points, but I agree there's a two-step action and perhaps there could be a third. So if we're identifying if things have been followed, but I think also our role as the CRC is to see if there's any potential barriers within those policies, maybe identify them. And then our role is to give advice. So in addition to seeing, have they followed policy? Was it transparent? Did we identify any barriers? And what are our recommendations?
So the barriers is basically like the third statement, which is follow up on policies that may not be fair and equitable. Right. That's kind of a barriers issue.
Right. It kind of goes into number 3 as well. Yeah.
Right.
It seems to me that all of what we're looking at is in reaction to an incident being brought to us.
Yeah, Margaret, thank you. I was just thinking that this is not our sole purpose. This action is when we receive something. So there may be other things like reviewing overall policies and things, but for this is when we remember this is for when we receive an incident report, this is what we need to do. So trying to keep that in mind.
Right. We're not taking on a review of all policies throughout the city at this time. Right.
Right. And I think it needs to be really simple. I mean, what you said, Myra, I think you had 3 or 4 parts to it. Might be the whole thing about what we do. We receive it, we get data about it, we find out if it's following policy and is transparent. We actually, I don't know that we're going to write a report, but I think that we need to have some kind of summary of what our perspective is and what we've done, who we spoke to, what recommendations we may or may not have made, our next steps, right? I don't know why this has been so hard, but it really has been really hard to articulate it. And and on one level, it's not that complicated.
Well, not until you really start thinking about it. Make sure there's
Myra?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe because I know this topic is familiar with me for reasons. But I think I couldn't write down all your bullets fast enough. So I am thinking step 1 of our procedure is to follow up with the person that submitted it, because we don't know exactly why she wanted it to be looked at by the committee. And perhaps some of the things that our recommendations would be for that person to be able to have some education about, not necessarily education, but know what their next steps could be. Because if it was an information gap, say they didn't have this report and that's what they were seeking, our next step might be to to ask that person or give information about public records and how to request, figuring out what the reason and why that they submitted that report, that they asked the CRC to follow up. So I think you spoke about liaison. So maybe there's a complaint or feedback liaison that follows up directly with that person to figure out what action did they want? Why did they submit this? Why did they bring it up during public speak? And that will kind of also guide what our steps are. Perhaps they wanted more information. Perhaps they didn't know the outcome of this report.
And I think that might become more clear too when people are actually using our incident form and report when it's actually live. But because we didn't have that.
So we do have something in place where we do respond to anybody who reaches out to us automatically and let them know that we've received their correspondence and whatever. So I think a similar thing for when we receive an incident report would be to let them know that we've received the report. And I think right now we need to, that's what we need to work forward from there and not what has happened or hasn't happened. Doesn't really matter. The thing just for me, I would like to see us get rid of the word accountable, because I don't think we have any power to hold the department accountable. And then Myra, could you read back what you said? Did you write that down earlier? No?
Well, not a chance of what you mean about the liaison?
No, more about, you kind of hit like the 3 points about removing barriers and.
Oh, okay. I was just piggybacking off of what Abby was mentioning, that we received the information, now I forgot myself. I'll watch the video. Thank you, Easthampton Media.
Luckily it's recorded.
Right. That's what happens when it's late. Anyway, the first two comments were made by Abby, and I think the last was saying what will our resolution and action steps be? What if people have followed procedures and policies? Did we identify any potential barriers? And then what would be our recommendations for improvements to whomever that we're advising?
I've been writing as we've been talking. I don't know, I'm just going to read it, and then if it's useful, we can use it as a basis, or all of us. Anyway, I like, what Myra said, follow up with person who submitted the incident report, potentially with a feedback liaison. Look into the complaint, get appropriate data or documentation about what the issue is. For us to look at if policies were followed, and if policies were followed in a transparent manner, and then write up our findings and recommendations, and then follow up on what happens with those recommendations. That could be a procedure no matter whether it's recreation or police or whatever, the school department. That's not the end all be all, but it is a process to use. That can get improved on, but it's kind of takes us from beginning to end.
Okay.
Margaret, did I hear you say the barriers part?
No, I did not.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Well, and I think and I'm sorry, I didn't hear it all either, but was there the part about follow up on policies that may not be fair and equitable?
I didn't use those words, but was the policy fair and equitable? What policies is the policy fair and equitable? Okay.
So maybe what we should do is have, like Margaret, do you want to write this up for us? And we can at least send it out to, not for any comment or feedback, but just send it out to everyone in the committee.
Yeah,
and
send it out for improvement, you know, succinctness or just another sentence. I think less is more in process in terms of.
Right, I would agree, as succinctly as possible, but maybe if you could take your notes and present them as succinctly as possible for the rest of us. We will not be providing feedback electronically by any means, but just for that, we'll all have that in writing, and we could talk about it at our next meeting and see if it makes sense to everyone, if there's any modifications we want to make, and then we can share it with Mayor LaChapelle if she's not with us, and see if she agrees that that reflects what her vision is. Mayor LaChapelle?
I would just make a suggestion also too, and I appreciate that there's been so many, like just hearing like what Myra and Margaret and others have said, and Emily, you know, the committee has been in existence since 2019, and so many different pieces of training and information has been given, and views of what the committee should do or shouldn't do. And with the honest, you know, or the candid suggestion and a boundary I definitely want to keep is that somebody who has intimate process, like knowledge of the process with Department of Justice, or a peace commission like Brian Corr or Meg Goronsky from the Civil Rights Division, would be happy to go through this language. And I not that I'm shirking work, but like just like the independence of it, right? I mean, we kind of went through that with the appointments. CRC is very special, and I think that a part of the pointed, careful conversation, which I really appreciate, shows that more. But you know, Meg and or Brian would be more than happy. You know, we could schedule that, and they're really good about making themselves available to give them heads up. And I know some on the committee have talked about getting him back anyways, Brian, but yeah. And Meg, I just talked to her the other day. So as far as looking at it, I'll read anything, but I think for independence, I'd rather connect you with somebody who does the work and honestly wrote the ordinance. I mean, the chief and I put it forward, but the DOJ wrote the ordinance. And then we just had it conform to Massachusetts and Easthampton structure. So that was a little long-winded. Yep.
Would we invite them to our next meeting?
You can. Yeah, I don't know what their availability is, but I certainly can get you in touch.
Or would in particular maybe send this to send this to them to review?
That's what I was
however thinking. Yeah, however the committee wants. I mean, I'll reach out to them, and I'll use the CRC email address and introduce everybody.
I was just thinking that might be better than trying to wordsmith things with someone in a large group, you know, like submit it. And when we've got it figured out, we'll submit it for review from the professionals.
Yeah, and the and either one of those or one of their colleagues also would be happy to join this meeting upon your invitation to talk about background around this committee's origin or what other committees do. I mean, there are community relations committees across the country. So this is we are, you know, in small and big and whatnot. So they're there, you know, they're there for you guys.
And you said, could you just, I know Brian Corr, I'm familiar, you all have referenced him, and I know he's in all the materials, but who are the other two people? You said Meg?
Garacki.
And who is she exactly?
She is the district director for the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division with community conciliation services.
Okay.
It's a mouthful. Yeah.
Okay. But, and who is the third person you mentioned?
I don't remember mentioning a third person.
Oh, okay. All right.
It was probably me mumbling. My apologies.
No. All right. So Brian Core or the Meg
Gronsky. Yeah, but I will do it right now.
Okay. So in terms of process, Myra?
Sorry, I guess I wasn't in the CRC then, but I think if we're going to have people look at our process, we may also want them to look at our form, which is going to lead to our process, to make sure that pertinent information is, if it's something that we are going to be taking on and making recommendations about, that it has all the information that we need, so that our form leads to our action steps, if that makes sense. Because I know there were things like developments, and I was watching via phone, so I'm not sure.
Are you saying the form, the
incident report?
Yeah. So if I think you called it the community input form. And I'm not sure I can just remember one of them, because that I thought I had a good idea about it. I remember there was a development section, an incident section, but I haven't seen it. So if they could also look at our form and see if it's going to yield what we need in terms of information.
Yep, that's a great idea. Okay, so Patty?
Yep, just to say this, and I think it's great to have the review of anything, but the form, I don't think we should wait. I think the form was accepted and voted in, so I don't want to continue to wait to put that up on the site. So, it can certainly be reviewed and adjusted along the way, but I just want to say that we need to get it up there. Yep.
Also, the action steps, I don't have a problem writing down what I said. How do we follow the open meeting law? Is there a way that whoever feels like writing up action steps, or that we just send them around to each other? Is that too confusing? Or do we then do some kind of compilation of all of those? No.
I think a good way to go about it is if you could, we're kind of assigning, kind of like, remember when we were writing the mission and the vision, and we sort of came up with a really solid, like what you've written down, and then everybody could kind of percolate on it for a little bit, and then we can come back and hopefully find some consensus.
All right, no problem.
But I think that it would
and edit
help if one person summarizes the essence of the conversation this evening and puts together the phraseology that you think would be best, and then we can share that with the group.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone will have the opportunity to mull that over, and we can talk about it at our next meeting and respond to that and clean it up or whatever, make some minor changes or what have you, just to cut down on us trying to not have such a large group figure out the wording.
And if I could just make a suggestion when people are reviewing what Margaret sends, is to really think about like what's really, if there's like changes, what do you like critically think about what really needs to be changed? Or is it just like sort of like, I don't know if I'd say it that way, but it gets at what we're saying, because we would all write this 50 different ways. And really think about saying what we wanted to say, just so we're not, again, over like this overkill of editing. We're entrusting Margaret to do this work, and then we can come back. And obviously everybody can have their opinions, but just really think critically about what absolutely you would feel strongly about changing, or is that kind of saying what I think anyway? You know what I mean? Just so we're not here for 3 hours.
Right. Right. Good point. Okay. So are we all set on that topic on the agenda? Any other comments? Well, we thank you very much, Mayor LaChapelle, for being with us and providing your comments. You're muted.
Sorry. Yes, I'm writing my emails to connect the group with Meg and Brian, and if I can be any. But I like last clarification. I mean, I'm here at the invitation of the committee, so not to rule upon, but to provide information, and I still owe you a document. So,
okay,
and
great.
I'll pass it on. And if you need me to be there to talk to that document, I'm happy to do so. Everyone stay safe, wear a mask.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay, so moving on our agenda. The Forum Subcommittee has been working diligently on planning, and I'm wondering who would be wanting to give us an update and report for where we stand. Mary Lou?
Well, I guess the basic bottom line is there's no funds for a co-facilitator, was my understanding. So I did spend quite a bit of time, and Patty helped with a conversation with Paula. And she was willing to go with a co-facilitator, but it's my understanding we do not have additional funds to have one. So we have opted to present what we were going to present the last meeting, is my understanding.
And that's because it was going to cost us almost double.
Right, because
the
there was
original
a second
fee.
person. Yes.
Well, I mean, I think the main point was that there just wasn't the funds to pay for another facilitator, unfortunately. Does the committee know who the other person was going to be?
Yeah, Patricia Rooney, right? Is that correct?
Is it
Romney?
Romney, yeah.
And
so, I mean, I would hope that we could hire her for future forums. This was not meant to be the one and only one we ever did. I mean, we have the yearly funds of $5,000, so I understand we could hire her for the next one.
can I just clarify that we don't have that money yet?
Right. Oh, okay.
Not been approved yet.
Right. Okay.
It's important to understand where we stand.
Yeah, that's the mayor's goal, is to obtain that funding for us, but at this point it's not a definite, but that's her plan and her goal. But we can't, it's not in the bank yet. We can't count on it at this moment in time. Okay. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I want to know, like, has the committee voted to say yes to Paula Green?
Not yet.
Okay. And then we also need to discuss the date, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And we also have to discuss, well, there's a lot of questions. Well, I guess I have a lot of questions, but I'm also we need to have a whole marketing plan for how we're going to effectively get the word out about this and have as many people participating as possible in the city. And I don't know anything about, I'm completely ignorant about conducting forums online and how all of that works, but is there any sort of limitation in terms of the number of people? Like, I'm not really understanding exactly how this will go, but in terms of the number of people that are able to participate?
If you're going to do anything interactive, you cannot have everyone in the city who wants to participate. You have to set it up as again, it could be a webinar. That's not the same thing as what we were envisioning. But you know, if you're going to do something with breakout rooms and some sort of interactive capacity, you can't do everybody. It would have to be something that people signed up for, and we'd have to figure out how to prioritize different constituent groups and who specifically to reach out to. It might not be something that we want to advertise to everybody, because that might not be the best approach if we think that learning to have difficult conversations is a particularly important skill set that we want certain people in our community to have, for example. So we might want to prioritize who gets access to this particular forum. Again, with the knowledge that there'll be many other opportunities for things like this. So if it's a webinar, that's very passive. I do them all the time, and I find that people are much more engaged if you have some sort of interactive component.
So if there's the interactive component, Abby, thank you for explaining that. What would you envision would be the limit in terms of the number of participants for that kind of a format?
We discussed the number 50. Personally, I would never facilitate anything that involved a lot of breakout groups with more than 50 people, but that's just my own experience. Maybe Paula might feel more, I don't know if she indicated that she'd feel comfortable with more than 50, but having done this, it's really hard to put people in breakout rooms that exceed the max number of, total number of 50 people. So it gets very complicated to facilitate.
Okay. Well, forgive me for my ignorant questions.
These are not ignorant questions at all. They just, a lot of discussion went into it. And again, This could take a lot of different forms. But when you have people organizing something, decisions have to be made about what direction to go in. And, we had some discussions and talked about different avenues and made some decisions.
Okay. Okay, so your decision as a group was that it would be an interactive, I never know the right word to use too, like forum versus what, I never know the exact language to use to capture what it is you're envisioning but anyway, would be to go the interactive.
Personally, I'm not attached to any particular format. It's more what the facilitator is interested in. And so Mary Lou can certainly chime in, but I don't get the sense that she was interested in doing something for a huge number of people.
Okay.
Yes, I agree. That's my impression from her. And she did mention that if there are breakout groups, she's going to need some, some help from various members of the committees. Hopefully people who have had experience dealing with breakout groups. I was, one of us was going to contact Easthampton Media. To have them involved. I don't know if they've had experience with breakout groups, and I would hope their expertise in dealing with meetings would be helpful, but we haven't pursued anything with Easthampton Media just because we didn't even have dates in mind. So I didn't want to start a conversation with anybody there without having some dates and kind of pegging what they thought.
Okay, so for the subcommittee then, what do you all feel is our next steps with regard to moving this along? What needs to happen from your perspective? What are the things we need to
Well, for starters, I would think the committee, the CRC would need to approve this forum. And would also need to have an idea if people have strong feelings of specific dates, not days, but dates that would not work before we start trying to have conversations with Paula and, Easthampton Media. We need to nail down a date.
Okay.
As to whether we want something that would be in the evening, during the week, on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, I don't know what people are, what people are thinking, what would work best for folks. I know there's a number of people who work. So obviously daytime during the week is not optimal. Particularly CRC members.
The research shows that weekend events are just not a great idea if you want people to attend. So evenings tend to be the best option for something like this. People are more likely to commit to something than on a weekend.
Okay. And okay.
And so I think we had talked about like later in January after the holidays. And to give time for Paula and any kind of marketing. And so I guess the question is timing and days of the week that might work.
Okay.
And then I would, Paula seemed to be fairly open, especially since it's in January as far as her time commitments. But I think the sooner we can nail that down, as well as nail it down with Easthampton Media to find out what their limitations are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we need approval of the forum in general. Myra? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I just guess I want to capture a little bit of the vision, and I would also like to share and some lessons learned in terms of online events, because there was just one hosted, and I don't want to be selfish with the lessons that I've learned, but share with my experience with them. And one lesson that I learned is, if you're going to have, for this topic, about difficult conversations, I think you would want it not to be a passive event. Some of the lessons that I learned through having which had to limit participation and sacrifice interactive participation for some other unfortunate reasons, is that people respond well, especially if it's on a remote platform, there being some degree of interaction, seeing each other's faces. In a webinar, you may not be able to see each other's faces. And if we're talking about having interactions in our community, I think it will be important that we can reach each other, see each other eye to eye. I didn't particularly, well, there wasn't an issue of people attending on weekends. There was a great deal of turnout for the events that I was a part of and learned from.
Myra, how many did you have on Saturday? How many attendees?
There were 70 attendees in the webinar. There were about 14 online, and of course it was streamed via Easthampton Media, and I guess will be on their YouTube channel for future archiving. So if your cap is at 50, it is a small number, but I would, just knowing all the back end work and that there was a dedicated tech team, I'm really cautious about having just one person be the facilitator of all of it. So this person will most definitely need help, and that people will have to have a degree of expertise, yes. So, but I think it's critical that we have small group discussions, especially if we're going to talk about difficult conversations, and let it be very well facilitated and well moderated. The webinar doesn't lend itself to that. You're right, because you can be watching, it's like you're watching TV. Right? And we really want to engage the community. So I just had a few concerns about that. And also just knowing my own personal workload, I don't think I would commit during the week because I'll be making dinner, I'll be doing work plans, but on the weekend, if I'm so fortunate to have the weekend off, it's much easier to dedicate time. And I think you said it was going to be an hour or two. So those are just my lessons learned and some concerns about having one person facilitate, host, do technical skills, live stream. All of those things require a lot more than one person.
Well, we will have Easthampton Media as a resource, and they're going to be our technical team and provide all of that technical support for us. So that's something that we do have the funds to cover. So that should help.
Can I just ask Myra for clarification? I'm not sure I heard you. Did you say 70 participants were there on Saturday, but 14 online? What is the difference between 14 online?
You can stream, oh, go ahead.
I was like, I can, because I was the one watching the, so you can stream it via Facebook Live. And Facebook Live will show you how many people are attending the stream. And it was a consistent number, because I was the one watching for comments on the Facebook stream. So there was a consistent 14 individuals disabled on that portion. So the way that we set it up is that if you registered for the webinar, that was your ability to interact with the panelists. So you were allowed to submit questions, and that's where they had the opportunity for that sort of interaction through that space. If you didn't have the opportunity to sign up for the webinar, you could watch it on Facebook Live. And the comments that were on Facebook Live were just like commenting about the event, but those comments weren't necessarily linked to the live event, if that makes sense. So it was just streaming through various platforms. And obviously if you're watching it on TV, you're just watching it by yourself. So that's the clarification. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Mm.
Yeah, and I also just kind of wanted to echo what Myra was saying in terms of like the importance of participation. And I just wonder too, like for a first event, I don't know if I may just seem, I'm just a little concerned of it being so limited to the public, just because we are such a public group, that's a public space that's meant for, you know, community engagement. And I just think if we are going to limit it, we're going to have to be really careful about like how we decide like who gets preference to attend, who doesn't, and like what it means to turn someone down, what it doesn't mean. And maybe if we do have a limited, especially since we're spending $1,000, if there is a limited amount of participants, because 50 participants for $1,000 is a lot of money. There's also a way for us to live stream it as well. So even if you're not able to participate in the discussions, or I don't know, that's something that worries me just about like the optics of what that kind of looks like. And it just doesn't sit right with me either, just the exclusion of, you know, people who are interested in engaging in like, who are like, how do we decide who needs to have these, to learn about these conversations more or not, you know?
Well, the sacrifice is you can't really have both, because you're voicing a desire for two different things, which are opposing. One is for interactiveness and one is for large numbers. And so I totally agree. You have to be really careful if we limit it in terms of what, you know, how we choose people or turn people away. But you know, at some point, some decision has to be made about, do we want as many people to participate as possible, or do we want interaction? Because you sacrifice interaction, the larger the numbers get. So again, I'm completely, personally, I don't think any of us are really attached to any of these ideas. It's just, we're considering what the facilitator wants, and also the original idea kind of prior to some of the newer members kind of joining us. The original idea was for something that was a bit smaller. So you know, it's just the toss. It's a trade-off. You know, we'll just have to kind of decide which thing is more important: having as many people participate or having more interaction.
Well, there's nothing that says that we can't do a repeat of the whole thing too. Like if there was tremendous interest and it was a huge success and we had many more people that wanted to do it, there's nothing to say that by then we'll know what our budget is. We'll have our funds. There's nothing to say that we couldn't do a repeat, right? Just a thought. Okay, Margaret.
Yeah, I understand about the budget. I'm not 100% convinced that I think it's a good idea to proceed with just one facilitator. And we have to move forward, but I hate to see us get jammed because we don't have the money. And I know that Paula and Pat Romney have worked together before, so they're not news. There's no newness there. And Pat's an African-American woman who lives in Springfield. Well, she's from Springfield. And I don't know, I just think it's a better blend to have the two of them. If in fact we want to have people deal with difficult conversations.
Well, I mean, at this point, we don't even know that we have more than 50 people that would be chomping at the bit to participate. I don't know. It seems like rather than do nothing and not get the ball rolling, I would think that we have the funds to have Paula as originally planned, that maybe we go forward and we do this. I mean, we might not have more than 50 people that want to participate or that we could entice to participate. I'm not sure, but it's a step. It's, you know, it may not solve all the world's problems in one shot, but it's a step forward. And I think it would be healthy, and we can, you know, evolve from there and decide where to go from there. And I don't know, that's my 2 cents.
Here's
Patty?
one of the things I was thinking about, you know, after our last meeting, and I really think it was good to take a step back. It helped me kind of think a little bit more about what we're doing here. And, you know, kind of what I keep going back to is, you know, like for our first, like sort of just echoing what Deb was saying, you know, our first one, and let's see, you know, how it goes and what we do. But, you know, if we do end up with the bigger budget that we can have through June, then I think our second forum, or, you know, should this be something we want to do, could be something where we're going to have access to more funding. And I would prefer to do that and have multiple facilitators, you know, perhaps in when, you know, should we choose whatever we choose that topic to be, you know, like, let's do this and let's try, you know, see how this goes. And then when we have, you know, this bigger budget, then we can create a bigger forum with multiple facilitators from a variety of backgrounds. You know, we could have LGBTQ facilitator alongside Pat. You know, I think with that access to more funds, we have more flexibility to make those decisions. It's just flexibility we don't have right now. And I would hate to see us not do anything at all versus, you know, getting our feet wet with this first forum with a very highly recommended facilitator. So that's mine. So I
Ira?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I do want to see this group that has been talking about an event for, you know, several meetings, get it off the ground. But I think one of the main points of this group is to recognize that representation matters in your event. If you have a singular presenter, just keep in mind your audience may be limited in terms of who is attending, because you're going to have a singular person. And at the crux of every event that we should be doing, we should be thinking, is this inclusive? Representation matters. Who we select as our speaker, if it's a singular one person, it does matter. And it also, by the sheer, okay, I don't want to get on a tangent. I just want to say, whatever we're doing, just remember, for me, the first thing is that representation matters for your presenter and your audience.
I mean, I hear you on that, Myra, for sure. It makes me wonder if we should wait until we hear about the rest of the funding and then schedule it. Yeah, that's an idea. You know, we may get, I don't know when we hear about, I don't know where the funds are coming from, you know, but.
And I guess my only concern would be to put so many of our eggs in one basket when we've never done this before, like to throw everything into one event without any other experience or context for all of this, and to just put everything into that is a little bit intimidating to me, a little bit uncomfortable to me. Like, I kind of lean toward the idea of let's get our feet wet. Let's, you know, get the ball rolling and get ourselves educated. And it's, you know, I mean, 50 is a fairly large number of people. We don't have that great of a following, to my knowledge, at this point in time as a committee to, you know, it might be adequate, is what I'm saying. It's like to just have 50 people might be more than, you know, plenty. I don't know. But even to take such a huge financial leap and then have an awful lot of expectations in terms of the number of people you're going to have commit and the expected outcomes for such a huge investment is a little intimidating to me. I guess I'd personally feel kind of a little more comfortable with, you know, we've got a long future ahead of ourselves. We've got opportunity to do many things going forward. I'd be more inclined to want, let's get started. Let's learn, you know, if we can get 50 people educated in a better way sooner rather than later, to me, I'd feel better doing that than the pressure even that such a much larger, much more expensive event would entail. That's my 2 cents. Myra?
I'll just keep throwing in my 2 cents, because in terms of a budget, I don't know who is pricing themselves to be $1,000 for 2 hours, but there's multiple speakers that would volunteer their time if they thought it was something that would be worthy a cause. So for one person to say they'd only accept $1,000, I mean, I'm kind of stunned. When you can have a panel of 5 experts and them to volunteer their time, if it's a cause that they believe in.
Gabby? Oh, I'm sorry, Jan.
I think Jan had his hand up first.
Oh, okay.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, Myra. I was going to mention that there are a number of speakers, people, you know I used to be connected with when I did a lot of work in Springfield. There are people who will volunteer their time. The other thing is, my question, and maybe it's, you know, too far in advance, but what would be the follow-up with such an event as well? Because when you get the people educated, you know, we need to have something that goes to sort of reinforce that education that they got. So I'm just, those are things I just, you know, I'm listening to this and thinking about, you know, issues I think we need to really discuss a little bit more.
Gabby, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to echo something what Myra and Emily were saying. And I don't know, I didn't interpret Emily as saying that like a huge, like we're looking like for the next event to be like super huge, but just that because this is our first event, like, and this is also echoing what Myra was saying about representation, like it's really important for us to be thoughtful about how the event, you know, the optics of the event, who's facilitating, and how many facilitators, not only how many facilitators we have, but who are the facilitators, and how that represents Easthampton, how that represents the diversity that we want to show in Easthampton, and also just think about what this forum, and then looking back at our mission statement and looking back at who we are as a group in terms of our purpose. And I think, I'm not quite sure that currently that aligns. And I think that's what I was kind of hearing from both Myra and Emily in their, so I think that's kind of what my concern still is just like one facilitator, the amount of money we're spending on one facilitator, and the lack of diversity that one facilitator will bring, and maybe the representation. Because if we do only have 50 people, it's who do you want these 50 people to be? And do you want an inclusive space of you know, 50 people who are very different in terms of, you know, race, you know, or religion, any of those aspects. So I think that's what I'm hearing the concerns are.
So I would speak a little bit to, so this idea of talking across differences, I think is just to, and you know, I'm open to this discussion, but I do think that I'm not sure that that is something that a volunteer facilitator could necessarily handle. So I'd want to, you know, I think this is not necessarily just an ideological, sorry. This is not just like a political forum or you know, an idea forum. You know, there's some deft facilitating that would need to happen here. So while I think that there are folks who can facilitate in a different, perhaps a different thing than what we're doing, I'm not sure a volunteer facilitator is what we would want to go with when we're trying to, you know, address this idea of talking across differences. I think that's a pretty, that's a pretty select
skill set.
Too. But anyway, you know, I mean, that's just one thought. The other thought was just that, you know, if people aren't feeling confident with this, with doing this, I think we should say that. And I think that we probably need to, it's 7:38 right now. So I think that we should probably maybe let's get some follow-up comments from folks. And then Deb, I don't know if that we're gonna push this to the next meeting now. And if we push this to the next meeting, I would suggest that the end of January isn't gonna happen. So
yeah, I was going to say, I have to go, but I was just going to say that I think there are enough concerns raised that we should probably not proceed. And the work that we've done, you know, I think that it sounds like we're moving in a different direction, or there are people who are wanting to kind of engage some ideas that were not initially kind of at the table. So it sounds like it's moving to something that was different than initially envisioned, which is great. And I think that might need other sort of energies might need to come to the table to make that happen because of the work that kind of went on kind of behind the scenes. I think it's important that maybe additional or other voices kind of come to the table because it's hard to kind of work on something. I think, you know, I think that new voices and fresh perspectives might be helpful here. The other thing I was just going to say is that I do not believe that we should have volunteers facilitating something like this. I believe that people should be paid for their time if they're devoting time to prepare for and you know, engage with something this serious. So it could be nominal, but it's important to me that people are paid for their time personally. That's something I feel pretty strongly about. And particularly when we're talking about people from underrepresented communities, I just think that's important to do. And again, the training level of a facilitator is something that usually warrants some kind of payment. You know, we can think that $1,000 seems large, but I can tell you that in many kind of, you know, given people's training and experience, it's actually not, that's actually kind of not particularly. It's hard to kind of put this in context, but certainly we could find somebody to do it for less, but sometimes we're thinking about, you know, skill level and experience. And so this person did come highly recommended, but certainly sounds like we're not moving forward with them. So I think it'll be great for other people to kind of generate some additional ideas.
Okay.
So, hang on one second, guys. Hang on one second. Thank you, Abby. And I know you got to run.
Abby, before you go, I'd like to make a suggestion. So a lot of work has gone into this committee, the subcommittee, to come to the point that we have and have these conversations with Paula. And we had a plan in place. And I guess, you know, there's lots of ideas for what we can be doing going forward and down the road and all sorts of things that we've got oodles of time to do as we move forward. I guess what I'd like to see at this point in time, rather than have the whole conversation derailed, I'd like to take a moment to see where we stand as a group. Some people haven't been very vocal here in this conversation, and I'd like to take the temperature of the group. And what I'd like to propose is that we vote. What I'd like to propose is that somebody make a motion to proceed with the original plan as outlined for the budget that we've discussed, and we'll determine a date in January. And if that does not pass, then we will move to Plan B, and we will go a different direction or modify the current plan. But at this point in time, given all the time and energy invested at this point and our hope to move forward, or when we started this meeting, I think we ought to take the time to see where we stand as a group. Is that fair?
Yes, thanks, Deb.
Okay, so based on that, would someone make a motion to approve and go forward with the forum as originally planned, discussed with the facilitator? I don't know her last name, Paul, I don't remember. Could we have a motion put forth? Alyssa? Oh, I thought you were trying to say something. Do you have a motion? Does anyone have a motion?
Sure.
Okay. So Patty do you want to state what your motion is, Patty?
Motion to move forward with the recommendation of the committee to use Paula as a facilitator for a forum in the end of January, date to be determined.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Rebecca has seconded. Motion, it has been seconded. Rather than open it up for further discussion at this point, since we've had such lengthy conversations to date, let's take this temperature and see where we're at. All those in favor of that motion? Oh, let me do the roll call. All those in favor, I can't remember, my list is here. Okay, Rebecca.
Yes.
Patty.
If I made the motion, do I have to vote yes?
You can say no. I think you can even go against your own motion, don't you think?
I'm going to say no.
No. Okay, Emily.
So Mary Lou and Abby put in a ton of work in this, and I did some amount of work, but I'm a big person in group cohesion, and I really want to modify our plan.
So that's a no?
And it doesn't mean ruling out a lot of what we've talked about, but I think we should spend more time to modify it.
So your answer is no?
Yes, my answer is no.
Abby?
No.
Margaret?
No.
Mary Lou?
I'm going to abstain.
Alyssa?
No.
Jan?
Oh, I suggest we modify.
Okay. Myra?
No, and I wasn't suggesting that people volunteer their time, just that they're so passionate that they would participate.
Gabby?
No.
Okay. So clearly this motion did not pass. So thank you for putting it forward. Thank you for taking this reading, and we will then continue this conversation. I guess we just need to determine what our action elements are for our next meeting with regard to this effort.
Actually, Deb, I don't have your vote.
Oh, I would say, I probably would have said yes. Not that it matters.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
It was tough to be asked first. You know, it's a tough question. You know, I should have abstained too, but anyway. So no matter.
Point, it's no hard feelings. The whole point is to just say, like, okay, let's see where we're at. That's the whole point. And I want to make sure.
Right. At least clearly we're moving forward, which I think we really agree that's good. So that's good.
Okay, and it's just good to see where we stand with the, everyone's weighing in and let's, okay. So we need to determine what our action elements are going forward. So what is going to be happening between now and our next meeting to move this whole topic forward? Does the subcommittee want to weigh in on that?
I'm wondering who's going to contact Paula Green and tell her that it's not going forward.
I can do it.
Well, I wonder, should we be talking about what the modification is going to be before we cancel her altogether? Should we be talking about whether this is we're just going to push it back a little bit and spend a little bit more time fleshing out details? Or I don't know. I'm just throwing out, like, does it necessarily mean that we cancel her? I don't know.
I need a little more time when I'm not hungry to think about it, but I would plan on saying, like, We haven't determined the date yet, and the committee is still discussing a co-facilitator and the necessity of a co-facilitator of someone of color.
Can I make one? I don't know. Is the subcommittee comfortable? And Abby had to leave. Are you two comfortable staying on the, working as the subcommittee and moving forward? Would you like more support? Would you like another person?
Yeah, actually, it would be great if more people wanted to join the subcommittee, so that we can have like more consensus before we do bring everything to the whole committee.
So I wanted to add.
We work just by email. We work just by email so far. We haven't had a meeting, So
I would say that because what I'd like to see is that the subcommittee is empowered to do this work, and then and then ultimately the committee, the larger committee, will be able to support that work. So if we have if anybody who has really strong feelings about this forum, I think it would be good for them to be on the subcommittee so that we can move forward, because otherwise this could get derailed in 3 months again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is okay. I'm just putting it out there. If you have, if you feel like you want to have more input, I would look for volunteers to join the subcommittee.
Is there anyone who'd be interested in? Jan?
Mm-hmm. Good.
Great.
Good.
Awesome. Okay. So we've got Mary Lou, Jan, Emily, and Abby.
I need to think about my situation in general. So I have to think about it. So if there's other people who want to be on the subcommittee, please do step forward.
Is it something that one needs to decide this evening? Because I would kind of want to know what the time commitment is, what it entails, what the duties are before I would step into saying sure, because I don't want to overcommit.
Well, all we really know at this point in time is that we need to plan this. We'd like to plan something and we're trying to make it happen. So it's kind of like blazing your trail, really. We're just trying to keep the action elements happening so that we're moving forward and we don't land in discussion forever land. And, we're just moving this forward, and it's all new territory. So we don't have any sort of documentation about any sort of responsibilities, but just appointed a group of people that could move it forward.
I wonder if it would be good to just take a look, think about, and I know this is not an official document and the rest of the committee didn't see it, but I thought it was a good start, the document that I shared with you, with Emily and Mary Lou, with sort of like a little bit more clarity around what the forum was going to be about. And then maybe you all could take that and create some roles and responsibilities, not big official, whatever, but you can be like, okay, Jan, this is what we need you to do. You're going to contact Easthampton Media. Emily, you're contacting Paul, not right now. This is not what's happening, but just specific things that people can do. And that way it can be really clear what everybody's doing. I don't think it has to be that many things. It's just, or
even to flesh out the goals and objectives and all of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, based on that, I'll be willing to help to some degree.
Okay.
Super.
Yeah, that's great. Now we just have to be sure that we do not have a quorum. So we're now at 1, 2, 3, Mary Lou. Okay, we're still maybe at 4. Okay. Okay.
What's
so
it for us?
What? Well, we're 11, so.
There's 10 here.
Yeah, what'd you say?
I just said there's 10 of us here.
No.
Yes, and Abby left, so there's 11 committee members, so 5 is less than a quorum, right?
No.
No, I'm just saying for a meeting, for a subcommittee to meet and not have official public meetings, for them to be like a work group. Like we can't have it can't be a quorum or a committee, or otherwise it needs to be a public meeting.
But
so
isn't a quorum 6? With a group of 11, isn't a quorum 6?
Yeah.
I see Abby.
As 5 or under on the subcommittee, then we're all set.
So, okay. So we're going to go forward with Jan, Emily, Abby, Myra, and Mary Lou to some extent, where it's a little undetermined at this point.
Yeah, I need to. I need to talk to you and Patty.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll assume that you all will connect with one another and proceed. And in terms of action elements, we didn't really determine what that is, but we'll leave it in your hands. Patty will share this document she's referring to, so maybe help flesh things out. And we'll just look for a report for whatever you're able to accomplish between now and our next meeting, and look forward to that. How's that? Okay, that's probably the best we're going to do at this point.
When is our next meeting?
We don't know yet.
We're not there yet. Okay, we got to move this along because we need to let you people get back to your life. Okay, so, all right, we're good with this? We've got a plan, we're moving on. Perfect. Thank you all very, very much. Okay, so real quick next on CRC outreach, just as an update, we received the logos from the graphic designer, and I've put those on the community input form and our website page. That's been submitted to the mayor's office, and that's in process to be put out there. So that's in the works. I've also asked the graphic designer for letterhead to go with our, so we might, times when we need to have the name and address in collaboration with the logo, all of that, that's in process, and she's going to have that to us by the end of the month. That's not currently holding us up with anything in particular. It's just something that would be nice to have, I think, going forward. And then the other piece is Facebook. So Alyssa is our Facebook champion. And Alyssa, do you want to speak to that topic at all at this point in time? Do you have something we should talk about to try to get that moving forward?
And my internet connection is horrible tonight, so I'm not even sure if anybody can hear me. So I may just, okay. It's been a struggle tonight, but so I have the logos, I've updated that. I think where I'm at personally is I just would like to make sure I have the correct email address and phone number if we're ready to start handing those out. I know, some community members are looking for those anyway, so if I can get those updated for the Facebook page, then I'm ready to go live. I would love to be able to start sharing when our meetings are, what we're working on, just as kind of starting points. So whenever, whenever you guys are comfortable, I don't know if we need to vote on the launch of Facebook. I know I shared, Deb, with you what it kind of looks like right now with the graphics, and I personally like it. So I'm excited to just kind of get running with it and see where it takes us.
Okay, great. So you said you blipped out there for a minute. So I just want to clarify. You said you still need you need our email address and you need our address, phone number, exactly what we use for all of that. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I can send that to you right away.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. And then you feel like you have what you need to at least get us launched to start even announcing when our meetings are, or start. Okay. Now, I just want to throw out there, is there anyone out there and from our committee who would be interested in working with Alyssa in this whole area of Facebook communication? Is there anyone that that's an area of interest, or that you're particularly good at it?
I use it a lot.
Yeah.
But it looks like Gabby was volunteering too. That could be fine.
Gabby, your thoughts?
Gabby?
Yeah, I'm happy to help, unless Rebecca, if you, I think you raised your hand first, so go for it if you really want to.
Well, let's, so Rebecca, you're doing a lot already.
I do a lot, so that's fine if somebody else. I have, one of the things I've done is worked on a different type of Facebook page. So, so I have that knowledge, but if somebody has more time than I do, then that's fine.
I always feel like
it could be too. Yeah, I'm fine with 2 other, even as moderator. Just, you know, if I go away for the weekend, I want someone else to, if there's a crisis that comes, I want someone else to be able to pass that along to someone else. So I think if we wanted 2 other moderators, it doesn't mean you guys don't have to worry about the postings or anything like that. I can definitely, you know, take that responsibility on, but just in case someone has a question over a weekend and I'm not around or what, I just would like another set of eyes and ears there to just kind of help me.
Okay.
So what I'll have to do probably is add you both on Facebook, I believe. As long as I'll be searching for you, and I'll work on adding you, just so you know to look out for me. But that's pretty much all I have for now.
Great. Okay.
My name on Facebook, just so you will, it's Gabby Stevenson, not Gabriella. So I'll change my name so you know what to look for.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so then the 3 of you can connect and you can discuss all that and move us forward. That's great. Does that sound good?
Yes, thank you all. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your work, Alyssa. Awesome. And I also just want to take a minute to thank very much that I neglected to do, to thank Rebecca very, very much for all her work with the minutes and everything she does for us behind the scenes. And she does a lot of work. And I'd just like to take a minute to say a huge thank you to Rebecca. You do an amazing job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure to support your work. I'm glad to have all the input that we have here. Thank you very much.
How about our next meeting date before we close?
So 2 weeks from today would be November 3rd, which is election day night. So we probably don't want to do that. Do we want to go three weeks? Give everybody a break since we're not moving forward with it. Like, we don't have a super deadline now.
Well, let me throw out there's something else that I do on Tuesdays that I do 2 Tuesdays a month. So I keep trying to get them around the meeting. So now the first and third Tuesdays are not good for me. That doesn't mean that you can't go ahead and meet.
What about November?
I mean, I'm sorry, I got it backwards. The second and fourth are bad. So the first and third are good because now we're doing usually the first of the month, right?
Right. That's what we committed to, was the first.
So you
Tuesday
could consider November 10th, but that's not good for me.
Gotcha.
And, and isn't that the school committee? Because there were some questions also about people.
Second and fourth is school committee. And so we were going with first and then as needed to add as we go along. So maybe first and third, but we were committing officially to the first Tuesday of every month.
So, but we're not.
I'm thinking we should probably stick with it. Would anyone object to us proceeding with the third, despite the fact that it's election day? Can everyone work around that?
Truth is, I already voted.
Me too. We all did. Yeah.
You know?
And it might be a good thing to do between 6 and 7 or 7:30 to not be glued to the television.
I was thinking the same thing, Margaret.
I'm so scared.
I know I can't do the 3rd, but if everyone else can, I think that's fine.
Just think we can support each other on the 3rd as we go into,
I just want to be mindful of our, I just want to be mindful of our community members that might also want to attend a meeting, but maybe don't have the chance to do early voting. Just a thought.
Okay, well then our other options are we'd miss out on Rebecca, and if we go with the 10th, and school committee conflicting with us on the 10th.
Yeah, I may not be able to make the 10th. So
okay.
I know that I can't.
Okay, so we've got conflicts with the 10th. Well, suggestions.
So is city council on the 4th?
Yes. Well, actually, I don't know that for sure. I shouldn't say that for sure. City council's on Wednesday nights. I don't know that it's the first Wednesday. Can people do Wednesday night, the 4th? Is that even an option with everyone here?
I can do that.
The only night that we can do.
I can do that.
You could all do that?
Let me see. One question you had is what, when city council's meeting?
Yeah.
Let's see, so they have October 21st, but yeah, that might not mean anything.
City council is the 4th.
Oh, it's the
Is
4th.
it the
Omar is
4th?
telling us it's the 4th.
Okay.
All right, so.
And yeah, I guess the 4th looks okay to me, but.
No, Omar just said it wasn't okay.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm gonna make a suggestion. If we did, Emily, you couldn't do which night, the 10th?
I have another volunteer commitment on the night of the 10th.
Okay.
And Jan can't make it.
And
Rebecca can't make it.
Right.
So, so we can do the 17th, allow our subcommittee to do a bunch of work. Deb, you and I can, be meeting with the mayor, maybe, and what was the other thing? Margaret's got her homework to do to put together that, so that would give people time to percolate on that. It's a month from now. It might give us a nice break, and again, the subcommittee, give the subcommittee some time, because then it's the 17th, and then we can get some work done, and then go off the next week for the holiday, and then go from there.
Okay.
And everybody
right.
to do their
everyone
homework.
Feel okay about the 17th?
Yep.
Show of hands, yay. Okay. All right, let's do that.
Motion to adjourn.
November 17th will be our next meeting. Okay.
And Patty made a motion to adjourn, I think.
Yes.
Oh, did you? Motion to adjourn?
You see that smile?
Has it been seconded?
If I've been sitting for too long, it means we have.
Right.
Was that Margaret who seconded it first?
Yes, Margaret seconded it. Yep.
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry.
All right. So Rebecca insists we do roll call for adjournment. So here we go. Rebecca.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Patty?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Abby? Not here. Margaret?
Yes.
Mary Lou?
Yes.
Alyssa?
Yes.
Jan?
Yes.
Myra?
Yes.
Gabby?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Did I get Deb?
Yes.
You said yes. Okay.
Yes.
Bye. Have a good night. Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Get out of my living room.